Thank you, everyone, for holding. We are now joined with the final head coach on today's teleconference, Chanda Rigby of Troy University. If you have a question for Coach Rigby, please press *1 at this time to get in the queue to ask questions. Again, that's *1 to get in the queue to ask questions for head coach Chanda Rigby of Troy. The Trojans are hosting South Alabama tomorrow night and also host Appalachian State this weekend. Coach, before we get started with questions, please give us your thoughts on the season so far and your expectations on the rest of the season.
Okay, well, hello, everybody, and thank you guys from the Sun Belt Conference and our media friends that are here today. Well, we were looking really good in conference play, having only lost one game to conference leader Arkansas State before we went on this road trip this past week to Louisiana. We had a very tough road swing. We lost to an emerging ULM team, and then we took another loss to an always good Lafayette team. So that dropped us to 5-3, not where we wanted to be, but learning important lessons as we go. Both of those games were lost late in the fourth quarter, which is not something you want to have happen as a coach. Also, both teams just went on great runs at the end, and they also had great six men as far as they had a big presence in the stands, a lot of fans in the stands, and I thought that was important for our team to have to learn to settle down and play well with 2,000, 3,000 people in the stands screaming, for the other team. We haven't had a lot of that on the road yet, but even though it didn't come out our way, we were glad to get that experience. We're still playing an up-tempo game. Before last week, of course, we were second in the nation in scoring behind UConn. We were only 1 point behind them. So we're still playing very up-tempo, but knowing that we could score a lot, we started this year really trying to focus on defense because that's kind of been our Achilles heel, is letting other teams score so many points. Our defensive style is, in our attempt to get great at defense, is very different from other people in our conference. For, say, Joe Foley, he focuses on his man defense, and he just gets his team so good, and they're like almost specialists at playing the style of defense that he has, whereas they focus on that one defense. We have multiple defenses, and pretty much every possession in the game we're changing defenses, and so sometimes it takes a while to get that to come around when you're doing that with so many players. We also play a lot of players. So I think we're a team that's emerging. We're going to keep getting better and better as we keep working on that. It's sort of a difficult thing to do, to change defenses so much. So we still have a lot of room for improvement. A lot of coaches on this teleconference today talked about being inconsistent, especially offensively. And I really believe that part of the reason we're seeing inconsistencies from teams on offense or even individual players on offense is because we face so many different styles of defense on a night-to-night basis. So I think that plays into it. It also speaks well to our conference and our the level of coaching that goes on here. As for our current situation, all of our attention is on South Alabama, in-state rival here. South Alabama, they come to our place tomorrow night. And, of course, after losing 2 games in a row, we're really looking and hungry for a win. So we're focusing on them. And as far as for the rest of Sun Belt play, we just want to make sure that from every single game we play that we learn enough lessons and we improve enough that we can that first of all, we can get in the conference tournament in New Orleans, and then once we're there, make a run to win it.
All right, Coach, thank you very much. As a reminder to our members of the media, please press *1 at this time to get in the queue to ask questions. Our first questions come from Dan McDonald with McD Media. Dan, please go ahead.
Morning, Coach. I got
morning.
a chance to see your team Saturday. I know you have the reputation of running it up and down the floor, but I was so impressed the way you defend. Does your defense maybe not get the credit it deserves because you've got the big offensive numbers?
Well, if it gets any credit, I don't know it, because that's usually my biggest criticism is, why do we let teams score so many points? But again, we have really worked on our defense this year. When we say our identity is that we run and we defend this year, and it hasn't showed up completely everywhere, but the wheels are turning. Thank you for that compliment on being able to defend at Lafayette. Again, we've been working on it a lot. The strength of our defense is changing the defense, always trying to stay one step ahead of the other team and what they're comfortable doing. So thank you for that compliment. That's a huge compliment because it has been our weakness in the past.
Your guys obviously, run up down the floor. To do that, you have to have, your folks have to be in shape to do that. Is that something I know that sort of you've developed over time, or is that more of a mentality that we're going to run and make people stay up with us?
Well, I mean, yes, conditioning is very important, and conditioning here in the preseason is pretty tough. We have some high standards on it because we know that's going to be our bread and butter, is trying to beat people to the other end of the floor consistently for 40 minutes. But once the season gets started, we do all of our conditioning on the floor with the ball in our hands, and then in the game itself is a pretty good bit of conditioning because we run pretty hard. But on the other hand, we do have 14 players. More games than not, we play all 14 of them, so there is a lot of rest time because, we're pretty deep as well.
What's the one thing that you want to try to do toward the second half of the year, as far as is there one or two particular areas you want to try to improve on, as you said, to get to the conference tournament, then make a run there? Yes,
well, first of all, being on the same page. The style of play we play, it tends to, you've got to be really intent on staying on the same page. First of all, because of the number of players we play. Again, normally we play 14 players on a given night, and it can be difficult getting 14 players on the same page, no matter who you sub in with. But I really believe that down the stretch, and especially the Sun Belt tournament, when you play 3 games in 4 days, that can end up being a very big advantage as long as we keep striving for that. If we don't give up on that and just go back to playing our best 7 or 8, I think that can help us down the line is playing a lot of players. So being on the same page with personnel would be first, but also continuing to improve on being on the same page and changing our defenses. And you might have just been in a sagging man-to-man and you needed to be 3 feet off or 2 feet off on this possession, whereas next possession we're in a hard man-to-man and you need to be up in the passing lane. Next possession you're in a zone, maybe the back of the zone where you just have to get the corners on each side. So, again, we need to be on the same page to be as good as we're going to be.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach. One final follow-up question just about Ashley Beverly Kelly this year. I mean, she's been outstanding, obviously, scoring the basketball, ranking in the top 50 pretty much all year in points per game. What really, what's like her it's not an emerging, she hasn't emerged this year. She was the same way last year, but what's really been the biggest gain to having her in the offense this year?
Well, of course, experience. We only have 2 seniors, right? Rachel Reed and Ashley Beverly Kelly. So having that experience and then having a player who has invested as much as she has, and I can't stress how much she has invested herself in practicing outside of required practices. She just gives her all. So once you've paid a high price, it's hard to surrender. And we did lose a couple of games this week to a couple of good teams that played really well that night. But I think she's going to kind of be a wounded beast in this way. I think she's going to come back. I know she got back in the gym this weekend, and so her experience and her desire to not surrender because of the amount of work and the investment she's put into this, those things are invaluable to our team.
All right, Coach, we appreciate your time today, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you so much.